This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so this is Stephanie. Hi everyone. I'm talking really to people online because they can't see me. This is Stephanie, your community association manager. I want to thank everybody very much for showing up to our Meet the Candidates event. Just a few housekeeping things. If you could please turn cell phones to silent. And also for those joining online, if you could please mute yourselves. So we don't get any feedback. That would be greatly appreciated. But like I said, I want to thank everybody for joining us here for our Meet the Candidates event. As you know, we have our 2023 annual members meeting coming up. And at that annual members meeting, we'll be having a annual board of directors election, as well as voting on two possible amendment changes. So there are 3 board positions that are up for election this year. The 3 people who are elected to the board will serve a 2-year term and join our other 2 board members who have 1 year left on their term. Those board members that are staying on the board are Pat Klein and Terry Horn. So they will be here until for 1 more year. But we do have, so that does mean that we have 3 spots open. We do have 4 candidates running and only 3 spots, so there will be an election at this point. So just a few reminders about the election. It is on August 10th, 2023 at 6 p.m. The 30-day mailing with the paper ballot and all of the candidate information was physically mailed out to everybody not signed up for electronic notices or electronic voting. If you did sign up for electronic notices and electronic voting, you received that packet digitally via email. We sent it out via our emailing system. So if you are voting by paper ballot, those paper ballots are due here to the HOA office on August 9th at 5 p.m. That's the day before election. Now, if you fail to get in your paper ballot by that time, the only other way to vote will be physically in person here at the plaza at the election on August 10th. Okay, and then same thing for electronic voting. Electronic voting is actually going to open on August 1st. So for those of you who signed up for electronic voting, you will receive an email from Simply Voting, which is the electronic voting platform that we're using this year. So you'll get an email from them saying that voting is now open and you'll be able to log in. It'll give you like a set of credentials to create a username and a password. You'll be able to log in and you can read all about the candidates and about the amendments that you'll be voting on, and you can cast your vote anywhere between August 1st and August 9th at 5 p.m. If you miss that electronic voting window, you will have to again come in person to make your vote count here at the plaza on August 10th. I'm going to be going over all of this information again at my quarterly community update, which is happening next Monday, July 24th, here at 6 p.m. We will have some light snacks and refreshments to entice you to come on down, but we'll be going over a lot of information, just things that the association has accomplished in the past quarter and where we're headed, challenges we're facing, all the good stuff. So make sure you join us for that, and I will be touching base on the election as well. But without further ado, let's talk about what we're doing here today. So we are here to learn more about our 4 candidates who are running for the board of directors. Like I said, there are 3 spots available. So we have 4 candidates. Like I've said, we have Marilyn McNevitz, who is our current board vice president. She is running for re-election. We have Neil Roberts, who is here in person. Sorry, Marilyn McNevitz is joining us via GoToMeeting. She is there. You can see her. Hi, Marilyn. Just give us a wave. And we have Neil Roberts, who's joining us here in person today. He holds the current position of board president. He is also running for re-election. We have Mark, I'm so sorry, last name? Roseland, I knew that. I'm so sorry. I'm nervous. I told you I get nervous speaking in front of small crowds. Mark Roseland I'm okay with big crowds. Small crowds make me nervous. We have Mark Roseland here, also running for the board of directors. He is not on the current board, but he is running for election. And then we have Alan Westerman. He is joining us via GoToMeeting online. He holds the current position as board treasurer, running for re-election. So how is today going to work? First, we're going to go alphabetically by last name. That's how I just named them. And we're going to go around to our candidates. They are each going to give us a 4-minute introduction. Okay, 4-minute introduction each. After their 4-minute introductions, we will be asking them a set of predetermined questions, and they will have 2 minutes to respond to those questions, and they will be picking randomly what question they are asked. So they don't have the order of the questions, so they will be picking a random number. I have the questions, and I will be asking them, they'll pick a number, I'll ask the corresponding question, and they'll have 2 minutes to respond. And after that is over, they will each have 3 minutes to provide a closing statement. Okay? So without further ado, we will get started with Marilyn McNevitz for your opening statement. You do have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Stephanie, and good evening, everyone. My name is Marilyn McNevitz, and I think you're probably used to seeing me on the screen because I've been a director for 2 years now. I live in Country Club 1 and have been a resident at Championsgate since November of 2015. I'm a retired CPA, and having worked for 35 years in public accounting and internal audit at a large Canadian financial institution. It's been an honor to serve on the board for the past 2 years, and I'm seeking re-election in order to continue the work that we've started and to see the various projects and initiatives that we have underway through to completion. As some of you may know, I am a Canadian snowbird and live in the community part-time. That being said, I believe I've functioned very effectively as a director of the board, whether I'm on or off the property. I dial in for board, committee, and other meetings, regardless of where I am or what time it is. In my professional career, working at the bank, I supervised staff across the Caribbean and Central America, successfully working remotely with my diverse teams. As Stephanie said, I'm one of the original directors elected 2 years ago, and I worked on the turnover committee prior to that. I've been the board liaison on the golf committee, the villa subcommittee, the covenants committee. I've worked closely with John and Alan as the treasurers on the finance committee, and I was previously on the communications committee, as well as the transition team when we switched from Icon to First Service. In all my activities and in all the decisions that I've supported, I consistently represent the interests of all the residents, including full and part-time residents, golfers and non-golfers, and people in each of the sections of the community. Many residents might forget that we are still a very new resident-controlled HOA, and while a lot has been accomplished, there is still much work to do in order to provide a great resident experience for everyone at the Country Club Championsgate. Since becoming a resident-controlled board in August of 2021, the board and the committees have established good governance processes to ensure transparency and open discussions. We've negotiated the new Spectrum and United contracts. We've changed the management companies. We've engaged a defect attorney. And I think everyone will agree that we've developed several lifestyle programs for everyone to enjoy. And all of that goes with the work of the committees and our partnership with the management company. I would truly like to acknowledge and thank Neil at this time for his great leadership as president, putting in countless hours, and to ensure that the HOA operations run smoothly. And it's been a pleasure to work with you, Neil. Thank you for everything that you do.
Okay.
Alan, as well, has been great as a new addition to the board 6 months ago, taking on the role of treasurer, which he has done without any hiccups. He's jumped in with both feet and is working very closely with First Service as we really try to clean up the records that we inherited from the previous management company.
20 seconds left, Marilyn. 20 seconds.
Moving forward, I see that there's a lot of opportunities for the next board. In the short term, I think we will be implementing the point of sale system, which will be critical. And we're into the new budget process, so it'll be important that we allocate our financial resources appropriately to manage the HOA fees. In the long term, what I think is really critical is we get to identify a long-term strategic plan and see what kind of resort community we want the country club to be.
That's
Some
time,
of our,
Marilyn. Thank you.
okay.
Sorry, thank you. I also did forget to mention, we do have Peter Curtis here as well, your general manager. He is keeping time for us today.
Got this.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, next up, we have Neil Roberts. You have 4 minutes, Neil.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, firstly, for taking the time to listen to the candidates this evening. It is important that we have a strong board to take us through the next stages of our development, which has some obstacles that we do need to overcome. As such, it's crucial that we have people with the right skill set, experience on the board to navigate our way through these challenges. My name is Neil Roberts, as we've already mentioned. I live in Backspin Lane, which is part of Country Club 3, or as it's more commonly known, Track K. My wife Elaine and I first purchased Champions Club in the condos back in 2016, before moving down here from New York to permanently live in Florida in 2018. We quickly realized that condo living wasn't for us, and we moved across to the country club in 2019. As background to my recent experience, I was elected to the board in 2021 at the turnover meeting from the developer, and it's been my honor to be your president for the last 2 years. Being a member of the board requires a significant amount of time and dedication to be successful, and so all board members need flexibility in their lives to fulfill this role, and in my case, a very understanding wife. The achievements that we've had during my presidency, I just want to go over a couple of those in the interest of time. Marilyn mentioned the Spectrum contract. I negotiated that revised contract with Spectrum with an annual savings of over $300,000 a year for this community with an improved service. Landscaping, we've transitioned to a new landscaping company, and whilst we still have some improvement to make with that landscaping company, it's significantly better than we had previously. Management company, we transitioned to First Services in June 2022, just over a year ago. And again, whilst there's areas of improvement, I think there's no comparison to the previous management company. Policy implementation. We've implemented a lot of policies during the course of the last couple of years. I'll mention a couple of them. The parking policy. So we've now got towing in place, we've got parking restrictions in place, and that's active. We're actively towing. The beautification of the community. Originally, this was just golf, and this is all self-funded, not from the association, but with the board's support, there's been significant enhancements to the golf course, and now more latterly, initiatives for the plaza, which is a great initiative. Code of conduct. We've put a policy in place to ensure that we're all reminded to respect our neighbours and the employees of the management company. And then lastly, turnover. We've engaged auditors, we've engaged engineers, engaged the construction defect attorney to help us with our fight against the developer. Prior to the board, similar to Marilyn, I was chair of the Residents Advisory Council, the Turnover Committee. I serve on the legal committee. And prior to that, I had 45 years working in the financial services industry. So what do I want to achieve if elected for the next 2 years? We've got a number of big projects on the horizon, and I think my experience and skill set is ideally placed to help progress these to a successful conclusion. Firstly, the implementation of the new point of sale system. This needs to be closely managed to ensure a successful conversion, and with my prior project management experience at JP Morgan, I feel that I can add value to this process. Secondly, the review of the overall architecture. I think the point of sale system, along with that, we need to look at our overall architecture. And then thirdly, and most importantly from my perspective, is working with the new construction defect attorney against our claim against Lennar. Lastly, in closing, I'd say a few words about my fellow candidates. whilst I've worked with Mark in his role as chair of the golf committee, I've not had as much interaction as I have with the other candidates, Alan and Marilyn. Both have been invaluable to me personally in their support and dedication, working tirelessly behind the scenes, giving up many hours a week to make this community great. A big thank you to them, and a big thank you to everybody supporting us tonight.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Neil.
Okay, next up we have Mark Roseland. 4 minutes, Mark.
My name is Mark Roseland. I came to this community 5 years ago. I had a house in Providence. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I bought a small plumbing company there. I had one employee, did about $500,000 worth of work a year. And currently, we've built it to a $20 million company, and we have 85 employees. My sons they have put me out to retirement, so they're taking over. We have become full-time residents here at Championsgate. Jackie and I both love the community. We both feel we want to be involved. We want to make it better for everybody. I personally feel it's important to be here full-time because all times of the year things happen. And I want to say thank you to our current board and our last board and turnover, which all fell in line, because that was a tremendous job. I mean, there's a lot of cogs in this chain of this community. And what I feel I can bring here is I build a business, operate a business, deal with the employees, I deal with contractors, and I would like to bring that help to this board. I've been on the golf committee for 3 years. I chaired it the last year. We came up with ideas. We wanted to do improvements, so we came up with ideas for fundraising, other ways to make money to build improvements instead of just raising prices. So, and I'm here to do what I can and bring my knowledge here. And like I said, I appreciate everything the board has done. I've worked with them through the golf committee, and I want to thank them for their help. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Last but not least, we have Alan Westerman. You have 4 minutes, Alan.
Thanks, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending this meeting tonight. And first, thanks to the other 3 candidates for putting their name forward. I think they all know what kind of commitment this is. Certainly Neil and Marilyn, being on the board for the past 2 years, know the hours of dedication that it takes. And Mark, similarly, being on the golf committee for the past 3 years and being the chair, knows what it takes. And it's good to hear we're all retired, because you definitely have a time commitment being on this board for sure. My wife Amory and I bought in 2016. We are in Country Club 2, as it's referred to. And I've been the treasurer for the past 6-7 months now, which has been a great experience. I've learned a lot. I believe I'm well positioned to continue in that role should I be elected. Sorry I can't be there in person. I am a full-time resident, although we travel back to New York because our parents, who are up there in years, require some TLC and visits from us frequently. But actually, I'm up here for a wedding this past weekend. We're back down on this coming Saturday. My background, similar to Marilyn's, is in accounting and finance. I started in public accounting, where I earned my CPA license. I spent the bulk of my career in corporate America in various finance and accounting roles, including some project management, strategy, etc. And then most recently, for the past 8-9 years, I've been a co-owner with 2 other gentlemen of a small consulting firm. But now I am retired. Prior to being on this board, I had the pleasure to serve on 2 charitable boards, which is very close to being on an HOA. One was a horse rescue, and the other one was provided healthcare in rural Haiti that started after the earthquakes. But similar to an HOA, charitable organizations often don't have the full resources and monetary backing to really, operate as a corporate entity does in corporate America. So I think all the above experience has, proven valuable to sitting on our HOA board. And in my information, I talked a little bit about, the public face of the board is our monthly board meetings, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of other activities that take up our time and our expertise. You referred to some of those: negotiating contracts, meetings with vendors, things along those lines. A lot of issues that come up on a daily basis. So I put my name forward for consideration for basically three reasons. One, I feel my background and experience to date, not only on the as treasurer, but prior to that on finance committee under the former treasurer and the legal committee as part of the turnover activities. I think that's a great value to continue to serve our community, and we can hit the ground running. There'll be no sort of lull in experience. Secondly, Neil mentioned this too, there's still a lot of balls in the air, a lot of projects in progress, and I would like to see those come to fruition as well. And then lastly, basically to help the board, steward the fiduciary responsibilities and ensure that we have a sound financial foundation. A good friend and mentor said the key to a public speech is be sincere, be brief, and be seated. I'm certainly seated, and hopefully I've been sincere and brief. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, so the next section of Meet the Candidates event, we have 16 questions now. So I'm going to go around to each candidate and have them pick a number at random. And whatever number they pick will be the question that they are asked at random. So they do not know the order of the questions, but they will each have 2 minutes. They will have 2 minutes to respond to their question. Okay, so we are going to start with Marilyn. Marilyn, could you please pick a number 1 through 16? You're on mute, Marilyn.
13, please.
Lucky 13. Okay. Marilyn, what is your general assessment of the management company? What do they do well, and how can they improve? You have 2 minutes.
With respect to the management company, I think we've had a difficult start as we engaged in this new journey. I think largely due to the challenges we inherited from the former management company, including poor records, poor systems, and no documented procedures. So you're effectively starting from scratch, as were we as a board. I think those are largely behind us. I think we're working on the financial stuff to finalize things, but I think the management companies brought a lot of new opportunities. They've got the new the app and the connectivity with Connect. The team and the staff there are great. I think we've got a good structure, and we've got the regular meetings that we've held with the board just to keep things going and monitoring the progress we're making. So I think things are working well. Thanks. And I continue to do a great job, please, Stephanie.
Thank you, Marilyn. Okay, Neil, number 1 through 16, please, but not 13.
Okay. I'll choose number 10, please.
Number 10. Neil, what have you personally done to positively affect our community since you became a resident? You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, I think I explained during my introduction some of the things that I've been involved in when I first moved down here in 2016 into the condos and then moved across to the country club in 2019. Straight away, I was engaged with the Residents Advisory Council. I helped that council pre-turnover because we had no real ability to change things, but at least we could guide Lennar in terms of giving them feedback on what the residents' views were through that council. And then as we moved forward with the turnover, we had the turnover committee. I put in place the turnover committee. I helped to run the turnover committee as the chair, and also looked at the various contracts, the engagement that we needed to put in place so that we had a successful turnover. Since then, obviously, I've been involved with the board. I also enjoy the social aspects of this community. and support all of the committees that we have within the country club in any way that I can. I actively participate on the art committee, the governance committee, the legal committee. So all of these activities are part of my contribution to what I feel is a beautiful community. Yeah, we have things that we need to do and there's things that we need to look at, but I think overall I would feel that our community is in good shape, can improve, but I think we're in a good position and I love working in this community.
Thank you, Neil. Okay, Mark, pick a number, 1 through 16.
Let's get number 1 out of the way.
Number 1, good choice. It started at the very beginning. Mark, what is your overall assessment of the current landscaping contract and quality of service?
Great question, because the current landscaping company, I think, is doing a great job in comparison to what we had. One thing that what I've noticed is you put a work order in and it gets taken care of. We have one gal assigned to our neighborhood, and I've put in 2 work orders myself, and I was called back within 24 hours. I've had 3 or 4 work orders with the last one that never got returned. I think the board did a great job in picking United, and I think they're early in their contract. So I think that it's still year 1, and I think at this time they're doing a good job, and I applaud the board for making that change.
Okay, thank you. Alan, pick a number.
Stephanie, we will go with number 3.
Number 3. Alan, how do you think we preserve home values?
Great question, Stephanie. I think there's a couple of things. One is maintaining the community, right? So Mark just talked about landscaping. I think that's a key element, right? As you drive into any community, one of the first things you notice is curb appeal. I think most real estate agents would refer to that as well. So again, if you drive through communities that don't have sort of standards or don't have good landscaping, et cetera, it's obvious, right? You see, it doesn't feel like the home values are going to be sustainable. Secondly is the amenities, right? I mean, we've got a beautiful golf course, probably the best in Central Florida. We've got a great plaza, we've got North Pool. So I think we have to keep those amenities in top shape and make sure that, they stand the test of time. They don't get run down, they don't get faded, they don't look terrible. So I think those are probably the 2 most important aspects. We certainly have challenges with the gates. That is more under the master, but that is a common gripe. And if you're driving up and you see that, it's hard to get into the community, I think, that could impact home values as well. So I think it's really kind of those 3 main things. There's probably a lot of other ancillary items, but those are the 3 priorities that I would say.
Okay, thank you, Alan. All right, we are back to Marilyn. Marilyn, pick a number.
I'll take 16, Stephanie.
16. Marilyn, what is your plan for improving communication to residents?
She was in charge of that committee.
I think communication with residents, I think we've had some big improvements over since inception. We've launched the community newsletter. I think our weekly e-blast is very informative. We've got the contact center for people to call in with questions, and just the general use of Connect is helpful. I think one of and certainly what the initiative that Terry and the communications committee did with the notice boards that have recently been installed, I think will be really helpful. One of the challenges I see is just making sure that we keep the database and the information current so people actually receive the communication the way they want to get it, like through email. I think there's opportunities to push information out through social media. But again, it's kind of communication is sometimes too much for some people, not enough for others. So it becomes a fine line to walk. But I think we've made improvements. I think the communication committee is doing a great job, and you can never communicate too much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Neil, pick a number, 1 through 16.
Number 2, please.
Number 2. Neil, what are your ideas to address and improve security safety concerns?
Okay. That's a challenging question. Improve security and safety concerns. Obviously, we have just seen the turnover of the master association from the developer to the residents, and we're fortunate in that we have 3 strong board members from the country club who are on that board helping to drive the initiatives that the master needs to address over the next few years. One of those is the safety and security, because they manage the gates, which something I would look for the country club board now to be able to work with the master board more effectively, because it is a resident-run board now. Previously, as a Lennar-run board, we had very little, if any, influence over how they chose to employ the security companies at the gates, how they chose to put safety restrictions in place, such as speed controls on the roads. Now, in conjunction with the master, I think we have much more ability to manage that. And as a board member and as the country club board, I think that's how we would be able to manage more effectively the safety and security of this community.
All right, thank you, Neil. Okay, Mark, pick a number.
4.
Number 4. Mark, as you think about the current working structure of the committees, what is working well and what areas need improvement?
Well, I think my opinion is there's not a board in any business that can work well without the committees. I think the committees basically get the input of the residents. And I can just talk, the turnover committee, which I served on I served on Scott Smith's, that found a lot of deficiencies and a lot of information that we needed around the golf course. I look at our golf committee. Our golf committee is very instrumental as far as improvements around the golf course, helping with the leagues, helping with the participation, helping the quality of play that we have out there, which is very important to a golf community. We are a golf community, and that's a very important asset. But all committees, and from what I just understood, that now there's a food and beverage committee, and I heard that they're doing very well on the input side. We need to get more residences involved in committees, because that's how we find what's wrong. Instead of reading it on social media and stuff, we need to get them involved.
Okay, thank you very much. Alan, pick a number.
15, Stephanie.
15. Alan, what will your top 3 priorities be as a board member?
So I think I might have touched on some of these, but basically, one, being a finance guy, is a solid financial position. Obviously, we put some things in place like the reserves, things like that to date, but I think we have more of that to do to ensure that future generations can enjoy our amenities, et cetera, and to make sure that they're maintained and kept up to date. And then I think another priority will be simplify our processes. I think, sometimes we have complexities that are not necessary, and it takes a lot of time and effort for a lot of people. So I think if we can simplify those, that would be very helpful. Obviously, maintaining the amenities, which I referred to. So I think those are kind of the three main priorities that I would say.
Okay, thank you. All right, Marilyn.
Number 7.
Did you say 7?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yes.
7. Okay. Marilyn, what is your assessment of the state of common areas and amenities in our community?
I think the common areas are in great shape. I think, similar to comments that have been raised earlier, I think it's going to be important as we, retain home values that we need to maintain and continually invest in the common areas. We'll need the longer term plan to understand what we want those amenities and common areas to look like. Certainly, Lennar didn't leave us with amenities that were built for the size of the community that we have. So we'll have some challenges facing us in the medium or longer term. But having said that, I think we've got a great facility in the community, and I hope people are enjoying it as much as I do when I'm there.
Okay, thank you, Marilyn. Neil, if you remember the numbers that have not been asked yet.
Yeah, I've got them written down. Number 11. I'll go for number 11.
Number 11. Neil, how will you commit to working as a team, including with the management company?
Okay. How will I commit to working as a team, including the management company? I think as we run this community, we appoint a management company to do the day-to-day services and run our community as the appointed agent for the board and for the community. The board has to work as a team, and I've worked, managed teams over the course of my career in the financial services business, and I've worked in teams throughout my life, and I think working as a team is crucial to the success of not just us as a community, but also for First Services in terms of their performance. So I think a very close relationship with each of the board members and the First Services team is paramount for that success. There will be disagreements, there will be challenges, and I think any team needs to be able to work through those in a very adult way and work through those in a positive way. And I think, working through that with the board over the last 2 years, there have been disagreements, and we've worked through them as a team and come out in, a position that supports the betterment of this community. So that's how I think we can work as a team.
Okay, thank you very much. Mark,
How about 5?
number 5. Mark, how will you commit to a positive attitude and representation of Country Club at Championsgate?
Well, I feel I have a real positive attitude. You know, after being here, we have made it our full-time home. And it's because of the people. I mean, the amenities are top notch. I mean, when you look at what it cost us to live here, we have very good amenities. And the people are second to none. I kind of tell myself that I make the right decision because it's a lot cooler up north than it is down here, especially after playing golf today. But you know something? It was the people that I was around that makes this community. And that's what sold us, and that's what I will do everything in my power to keep. We can kind of talk about the financial stuff all the time, but I think it's just as important to get people to want to stay here and spend their money here than take it outside. And So that's what I would work on.
Thank you. Alan, pick a number.
Number 9.
Number 9. Alan, how do you intend to work with other board members you may not agree with?
Convince them that I'm correct. No.
I'm glad you got that one.
Yeah.
I think it's simple. It's listen, right? In other words, as the current board members all know, we don't always agree on everything, and we all come at it from a different perspective, different biases, et cetera. But I think the most important is to listen to the other viewpoints, you know, see their validity, or be able to argue why you think your viewpoint is different or better, or should be given equal weight. So I really think it's just listening and talking through the issues. I mean, one of the challenges, which many people probably aren't aware, is that as a board, we can't create a quorum like off to the side. So there's never a point where 3 or more of our board members can meet unless it's an open published. So a lot of times we don't get to debate these things, before we go into a board meeting. So oftentimes, when an issue is presented, you might even sense some, disagreement, during the board meeting. So that is one of the challenges. And sometimes it has to, meet with 2 people and then meet with 2 other people and kind of talk through them. But again, I think it's really just the key is listening and hearing other people's perspectives. And the nice thing is we're always grounded by our governing documents. So they kind of set out, here's how things should work. They're not always black and white, and they're subject to interpretation. But that's kind of our sort of constitution. That's where we start, and then we work from there. But I think it's always a healthy outcome in the end when we have these, discussions and we each listen to each other.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
Thanks.
All right, so we do have one more round of one question for each candidate. So Marilyn, this will be your final question. Pick a number.
Sorry, can you tell me which numbers are left?
Oh, I'd love to. We have number 8, 14, 6, and 12.
14.
14. Marilyn, what does transparency mean to you?
Well, transparency means being open and honest. It means full communication, even if the message isn't popular or what people want to hear. Transparency means representing the community at large and not just individual stakeholders. We need to be able to stand up to the scrutiny of others in the community and also sharing information that's important for everyone to know. So for example, transparency, the next thing we'll be doing is the budget. And people need to know how the numbers came about, what the initiatives are, where the money is going to go, because it's all about the money, and we're responsible for making sure that people understand where the money goes and we get value for their money.
Okay, thank you, Marilyn. Okay, Neil, this will be your final question.
Number 6, please.
Number 6. Please explain what fiduciary responsibility means and how you plan to uphold that.
Okay, good question. Well, what is fiduciary responsibility? It's the responsibility to act on behalf of the community with their best interests at heart. So that's really what it comes down to. So as a board member, it's about making sure that you are looking at the community as a whole and acting on their best interests to make sure that we're making decisions that are responsible for that community. Now, that might not mean everybody's happy about those decisions, but it's about generally making those decisions on behalf of the community, which is why you elect a board in the first instance. But it's also about transparency, and I think Marilyn touched on this a little earlier. It's about transparency in how we are taking those actions and also why we're taking those actions, and making sure that we have the resources to support us behind that, such as our HOA attorney, such as the committees, so that there's full transparency from start to finish on any of these decisions that the board is being made. That is part of our fiduciary responsibility.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mark, last question for you.
Let's try number 8.
Number 8. What do you believe are the two greatest challenges facing this community, and what would you do to help resolve those issues?
That's a good question. I think we're on. I think the two biggest things that I have seen. One is the cost, because to run a community of this size, it takes a fairly large budget. And when you do comparison of just your everyday cost of living somewhere else and compare it to the cost of what we pay here as a monthly assessment, uh, it's a pretty good deal. And I would just, to try to keep it affordable, is to try to make sure that the people that we hire and we contract with, we get good value for our contracts. Whether it be landscaping, whether it be the spectrum, which Neil has done a great job. Pat did a great job with the landscaping contract. I mean, the board has done a great job holding costs down, and I would want to stay part of that. But I think the other thing is to keep costs down, we have to keep improving our amenities to keep people here and to keep their money here. Because the money you spend at Championsgate amenities stays in your community. And I think that's what everybody has to realize, is that, if you want to have 5 or 6 beers, drink them here.
Next time. Thank you. I know I don't like cutting you guys off. I'm sorry. Okay, Alan, last but not least, question number 12 is for you. Yes. Do you think that our golf club should move to being fully private? And if so, how would we accomplish that?
Very good question. And that's part of sort of a longer term strategic vision. And I can say a solid maybe. Being a finance guy, it clearly has to work financially, right? So clearly it's a phenomenal asset for our community. Whether you golf or you don't golf, it adds to the home value. Certainly green space, if you walk around a community that doesn't have a golf course or a park attached to it, very close together, everything's on top of each other. It's just a great amenity, great asset. That said, any kind of plan or strategy to take it private has to work for both, full-time golfers, I'll say, or everyday golfers, part-time golfers, and non-golfers, right? So it's got to be a plan. I come from the Northeast, where usually there's a buy-in to a country club, and then there's annual dues, and then you can have member play or guest play, and then there's, usually something, a limited number of times a year that if you live near there or you're a resident or whatever, you can play for a fee or whatever. So again, we'd have to run a financial case. We'd have to see the return on investment. And it's going to be a similar kind of analysis that comes up when the master looks at the Oasis purchase in a few years. So again, I can't say yes or no because I've not seen any proposals or plans to calculate how that would work and what would that mean to HOA fees, buy-in fees, all that kind of stuff that you would want to do to do a proper analysis of that.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so that concludes our candidate questions. We are going to end with a closing statement from each candidate. They're each going to have 3 minutes for their closing statement. So Marilyn, we are going to start with you. You have 3 minutes.
Thanks, Stephanie. So I think you've heard my comments throughout the session. Some of them you may not have heard because I was not good at time management at the beginning. That 4 minutes went by quickly. Having said that, I'm seeking re-election because we aren't done yet and there's still a lot more to do. I'm committed to seeing those things through. I do ask the tough questions when I need to, and I ensure transparency in all the decision making. I've got a really good working relationship with FSR and the members of the management team. I've developed a really solid knowledge of the operations, and I have a successful track record, I think, working with the other directors and committee members, and at which time I would like to thank Neil, Alan, Mark for your work on the golf committee, and certainly Terry and Pat. I think the challenges facing us are going to be around the operations and the financial reporting and making sure we've got solid information so we can make good decisions around budgeting, cash flow, and things like that. All in all, I've really enjoyed my time on the board, and I want to continue to make the Championsgate a great place to live. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, Marilyn. Okay, Neil, closing statement. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Echoing a lot of what Marilyn has said in terms of thanking the board for what they've contributed so far in the last 2 years with Pat, with Terry, with Peter. For the first year, sadly, John no longer with us, but did a tremendous job on the Treasury before he passed. And then latterly also with Marilyn and Alan taking up those positions as well. Mark for volunteering on the golf committee and now putting his name forward as candidacy. I think my job hasn't finished. I've not ended what I wanted to achieve. The turnover took a lot of resources in terms of going through that process, working with the auditors, the engineering companies, the legal side of it. I'd like to see that to completion. I'd like to work very closely with the construction defect attorney to make sure we're holding Lennar accountable for the issues we have in the community and making sure that financially they are compensating us for making those changes that we're going to need to do in terms of the areas that need to be repaired and constructed. So I'd like to continue to do that. I think I've got the right skill set to be able to continue in that process, as well as manage some of the other projects that I mentioned earlier that we're working through in terms of point of sale, in terms of the re-architecture of our infrastructure on the IT side. So that would be, my reasoning for looking for re-election. As I say, it's been a pleasure and a delight to serve this community for the last 2 years. I'd like to continue to do so for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Mark, your closing statement. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank the board. I've worked closely with both boards that we've had so far. I'm the new kid on the block when it comes to the board. I've also know in business, and also I've served on other country club boards as president and board members. Sometimes you have to worry more about going forward than you have to on what is past. Now Lennar should never get a pass on what they've done. They owe us a lot of money, and we need to go after that. But I think it's very important for us to keep moving forward with the improvements we've got at the plaza, the improvements, the pickleball. Pickleball is huge. I think pickleball is something that needs to grow in this community. The more amenities we have, like I've said before, the more amenities we have, the more money gets spent in our community, and that money stays here in the community. That's the vision that I see that we need to go. And as the new kid on the block on the board, maybe I can bring some fresh ideas. And that's the purpose that I put my name forward. And I want to thank the board again. They've done a tremendous job.
Okay, thank you very much. And Alan, you have 3 minutes for your closing statement.
Thanks, Stephanie. Going to echo many of the same comments. First, I want to thank all the committees and the committee chairs. The board dedicates a lot of time, and our job would be impossible without the committee and the committee chairs and all the work that you guys do and the ideas you bring forward and the recommendations and all the legwork you do on vendors and contracts, et cetera. So that can't be emphasized enough. And for the broader community, as you're looking for ways to contribute or to get involved, communities are a great way to start. They get you sort of a foot in the door, plus get you up to speed on whether it's facilities or ARC, et cetera. Just a really important aspect of the community, because without them, we'd have to increase cost to hire people to do those similar roles. And none of us, I don't think, want that. We like to spend our resources elsewhere. For both Neil and Marilyn, as I said in my candidate information sheet, I'm only been at this 7 months, and it was a decision to sort of run again and put my name forward, because it is a significant time commitment, and that they're both willing to sort of commit to another 2 years is very impressive, and I appreciate that. Mark, similarly, you've been on the golf committee for 3 years, chair for 1 year. Again, the fact that you're willing to put forth your name and dedicate the time required, very much appreciate that. And again, for future elections, it would be nice to see more community members get involved, bring, forth your experience and your talents to help drive the community to where it should be or to where it can get to in the future. I also think pickleball is great. I play it on a regular basis. I probably switch to more pickleball than golf. And I would like to see, the game expand. I think there's a lot of great activities going on there. So I think that's a plus. So I think there's a very bright future. We just got to build a solid foundation, both financially and with a strategic vision towards the future, and work with the master, the retreat, and make this community as fabulous as we all know it can be. So again, thank you for your consideration, and appreciate everybody attending tonight, and look forward to the vote in about 20 some odd days. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Alan. All right, folks. Well, I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. Don't forget that the official mailings have already been out, so you should have received those in the mail already. That has all of the candidate information there as well. We are going to, this was a recorded session, so we will be posting this on the community YouTube channel, and I will be sending the link out to that. So if you want to go back and review anything, or for those homeowners who did not have a chance to call in today, they'll have a chance to hear from our candidates as well. Don't forget, election is August 10th. You can join us in person, or you can call in online. Don't forget, this is not that big of a building, so consider joining online possibly. We don't need all 937 people here in attendance, but fill out, that's true. Fill out those proxies as well, because not only do you vote for the amendments on that proxy, but that is how we count you as present if you are not going to be attending the meeting in person. Okay, so have a fantastic evening. Thank you so much again for joining, and we'll see you later. Have a good day.